The story begins by revealing that Gray had become the most powerful king in the world. However, without warning, his life comes to an end, and he is reborn in a medieval world. As soon as he opens his eyes, still a baby, he sees two smiling faces, his new parents. Their eyes overflow with affection and happiness. Both comment on how the newborn son resembles them and don't hide their excitement about the arrival of little Arthur. Reynolds, the father, immediately decides to name him Arthur and tries to get the baby to call him Daddy. Alice, the mother, laughs but reminds her husband that the boy is still too young for that. While the two play with their son, Arthur watches them with suspicion. He doesn't understand who these people are or why they are so sure they're his parents. If what they say is true, it means he really died and is now living another life, but with all the memories from the previous one. Lying down, he tries to accept that, even after winning countless battles and conquering everything, he now finds himself trapped in a fragile and incapable body. This situation makes him extremely uncomfortable, especially when he needs to do something so simple and at the same time so embarrassing, like burping. Despite this, Arthur doesn't feel angry about the life he has now. His new parents take care of him with dedication, but even so, he doesn't feel completely well. He doesn't like the idea of wearing diapers and lives with a constant feeling that he might be in danger. His only instinct for defense is to clench his fists tightly. Reynolds notices this and is amused when he puts his finger in his son's hand, thinking the squeeze is a sign of affection. When trying to move and squeeze the finger harder, Arthur ends up overdoing it and soils himself, making Alice have to clean him. He feels so embarrassed that he nearly cries. He wanted to believe it was just a strange dream, but he already understands that this is the reality he'll have to deal with from now on. Amid all this, something unexpected happens. Arthur witnesses his father using magic to increase his strength. Later, he also sees his mother using magic to heal him. This leaves him deeply intrigued, as in his previous life, he had never encountered anything like it. He wants to understand how magic works, but he knows he still needs to grow first. Shortly after, Reynolds enters a forest and defeats a beast with the help of magic. Then, he is visited by some friends who will play important roles later in the story. Meanwhile, Arthur, still unable to do much, watches everything around him, absorbing every detail. For him, knowledge has always been a powerful weapon, and now would be no different. When Reynolds returns from the hunt, Arthur wonders if he's now in a place where people live armed. If that's the case, this world is probably much more dangerous than it appears. He concludes that he needs to find a way to gain power as soon as possible if he wants to survive and adapt. He still has many questions he can't ask, but even so, he begins to find joy in the simple moments with his parents. In his old world, he couldn't even sleep peacefully. Someone was always trying to take his life. Now, living with safety and affection, he begins to get used to this new reality. Time passes, and after several days, or maybe weeks and months, Arthur learns to crawl. Soon he goes to a mirror to see what his face looks like. He gains more control over his body and starts sneaking out of the crib whenever his parents aren't around. His favorite destination is the library. There, he grabs a curious book to learn more about this world. He discovers that he's on the continent of Dicathen, divided into 3 great kingdoms: Darv, where the dwarves live; Elenoir, an elven kingdom hidden deep within the forest; and Sapin, land of the humans, where he is now. He learns that this world is also ruled by a monarchy, but unlike the previous one, where the throne could be taken by force, here power is inherited. With this basic information, Arthur tries to understand magic. He grabs a specific book on the subject, curious to know how everything works. As he reads it, he realizes how technologically superior his old reality was. The book explains that the magical energy of this world is called mana. Only 1 in 100 people is born with it, and this energy is passed down from generation to generation. There are 2 main ways to use it: augmentation, which enhances physical capabilities, and conjuring, which allows one to create and manipulate mania externally. With this, Arthur understands that his mother is a conjurer. He also discovers that each person born with mana possesses a magic core, normally accessed during puberty. By mastering this core, a person can become a mage. For Arthur, the concept resembles the Kai he used before. He even tries to activate it, but the moment he starts to concentrate, Alice picks him up, thinking he got dirty. And she was right. While she changes him, he feels trapped in such a fragile body and reaffirms to himself that one day he will become strong again. Later, Alice writes down details of her son's development and shows satisfaction with his progress. But there's something that worries her. Arthur still hasn't smiled at them. Just thinking about it makes her heart ache. Looking out the window, she sees Reynolds trying to teach Arthur the basics of swordplay. The father is excited about the progress, but Alice finds it not funny at all. She gets annoyed when she finds out he's teaching something so dangerous to such a young child. Arthur watches the argument closely, using the moment to try to better understand the relationship between men and women in this world. He even starts to wonder if here, women have more power. Later, Alice takes him to the market, and Arthur is enchanted by everything he sees. Each new item seems like an opportunity to learn. Now he understands why babies often look around so much. In particular, he's fascinated to see magic being used in public. On the way back home, he starts to doze off, but before that, he mentally thanks for being beside such special people. Arriving home, Alice comments on how happy she is when he escapes the crib to read, and how curious he is during market visits. She thinks this comes from Reynolds, and fears that, in the future, Arthur will want to go out into the world. Even so, she hopes he'll live a calmer life. At another moment, Arthur sees his father training magic and gets excited at the idea of being able to learn from him. Initially, he finds his father's display too simple, but when Alice appears and encourages him to pay more attention, Reynolds unleashes a much more impressive power. Arthur concludes that he is an augmenter. Excited, he wants to try something too, but is interrupted by Alice, who says it's already bedtime. When taken to the room, he sees a book on the shelf and starts crying, pointing to it. With a convincing little face, he manages to convince his mother to let him read a little longer. While reading, he starts trying to channel mana throughout his body and direct it to a single point, the beginning of the creation of a magic core. When the parents think he's already asleep, an explosion occurs inside the house. Reynolds instinctively protects Alice but ends up burned on the back. Once they make sure they're okay, they remember Arthur and run to where he was. Upon arriving, they're shocked. Arthur is floating, surrounded by intense energy. The two are paralyzed, just watching as their son slowly begins to descend. But when he lands, part of the ceiling collapses. Before something worse happens, the parents act quickly and save him. It was close. After that, everyone cries. Arthur, moved by the situation, realizes that Alice and Reynolds would do anything to protect him, something he never experienced in his previous life. The scene shifts to a moment from Arthur's past. In that previous life, he was remembered as the most powerful king of all. One of his servants was caught trying to take his life, and according to the laws of that time, the punishment would be immediate execution without any right to defense. However, the royal council decided to follow another path, to send the man back to his country of origin along with his entire family. They knew very well that the fate that awaited them there would be even worse than death. Desperate, the aggressor pleaded for compassion. He asked Gray to at least spare his wife and son, but Gray, without showing any sign of compassion or hesitation, killed both before the man's eyes. He did not do it out of revenge. In his mind, that was an act of mercy. It was clear proof of how relentless he could be. It is hard to believe that Arthur, that boy with a calm and gentle appearance, had once been someone capable of making such cold and ruthless decisions. Now, in the present, Arthur spends some time with his father, Reynolds, who decides to gift him a pair of combat gloves identical to his own. But Arthur refuses the gift. He still prefers to continue training with his wooden sword. In his opinion, with the body he currently has, the gloves would limit his movements too much and put him at a disadvantage. Reynolds does not insist on the matter of the gloves. He simply smiles and begins his own warm-up. But today's training would be different. During the combat, Arthur reveals that he has learned to reinforce his sword with mana. Surprising Reynolds, he disarms him for the first time. It was Arthur's first victory against his father, leaving Reynolds completely without reaction, impressed by his son's sudden progress. Later, during dinner, Reynolds announces that it is time to find a real instructor for Arthur. He recognizes that if he continues to be solely responsible for his training, he will end up limiting the boy's growth. Alice, Arthur's mother, does not agree. She knows that this means he would have to leave the house in the hills and go to the city, even though he is so young. But Reynolds insists. He explains that Arthur is already capable of enhancing any object with magic and states that this decision is necessary for his future. Dinner turns into a discussion. To resolve the situation, Arthur suggests that they both accompany him to the city. Thus, Reynolds can find the ideal tutor for his son, and Alice can remain by the boy's side. The proposal is accepted immediately. They begin packing their things to move. Shortly after, Reynolds' former companions, a group of adventurers known as the Twin Horns, appear to escort the family to the city. Arthur introduces himself to the group and talks with their leader, Adam. He mentions that they have seen each other before, although he thinks Arthur would not remember. But Arthur remembers perfectly. It was when the house exploded, and the group appeared to help rebuild everything. On that occasion, he discovered that his parents had already been part of the Twin Horns before settling in the hills. After that conversation, Angela arrives and hugs Arthur tightly, almost taking his breath away. Duran, the group's warrior, saves him by pulling him away. At that moment, Arthur notices a girl watching him from the top of the carriage. She is Jasmine, who merely stares at him without saying anything. Her gaze leaves him thoughtful. Shortly after, Helen approaches, shakes his hand, and introduces herself along with Jasmine. With everyone introduced, the journey to the city of Xyrus begins. During the trip, Arthur thinks about how that means of transport is outdated compared to his old world, where flying vehicles were common. Even so, he is not bothered. After all, he has his mother by his side throughout the journey. They make stops every day. At one of them, they are attacked by wild wolves. Arthur realizes for the first time how dangerous that world can be. Jasmine joins the fight using her daggers with impressive precision. Reynolds, Adam, and the others also join the battle and resolve everything quickly. Arthur, merely observing, feels inspired by them and begins to want to be part of that kind of adventure. That night, the group celebrates with a banquet. Arthur notices that his mother is not eating. She says that she is satisfied, but he feels that something is off. Then, she notices a wound on Reynolds' arm and gets up to heal it. The atmosphere changes. Everyone becomes alert, taking care that no one sees them. It becomes clear to Arthur that his mother's healing ability is something rare and very valuable in that world. He now understands why his parents lived in isolation, to keep Alice's power away from prying eyes. After dinner, Adam invites Arthur to a duel. He wants to see with his own eyes what Reynolds had told him about the boy's talent. The other members get excited and surround the two to watch. Arthur, at only 4 years old, wonders why no one seems worried about fighting a child. But he accepts the challenge. It is the first time he would face someone other than his own father. And Adam uses a real spear, albeit covered with bandages. As soon as the fight begins, Adam reinforces his weapon with mana. Arthur does the same, but goes even further. He channels mana into his feet to increase his speed. In an instant, he approaches Adam even before he can react. Then he outmaneuvers Adam and reappears behind him, surprising everyone with his speed and precision. The fight continues, but the physical difference between them is clear. Adam, with a single blow, sends him flying. Arthur feels on his skin how his body is still too light for direct combat. Before hitting the ground, Angela softens his fall with wind magic. Duran reprimands Adam for having gone too hard. Adam apologizes, saying that he was caught off guard by the boy's technique and couldn't contain his excitement. He wonders what kind of training Reynolds gave his son to make him so strong. Meanwhile, Jasmine watches Arthur intently. She wants to understand how he did that. She implores him to teach her. From her expression, Arthur realizes that she won't give up until she learns. The next morning, the group resumes the journey. At one stop, Adam starts teaching Arthur how to use the spear, while Reynolds has him train with strenuous exercises. Later, Helen teaches him to use the bow, and Arthur learns quickly. After that, he begins to train Jasmine, who also proves to be quite talented. That night, while Arthur reads a book, he notices that Jasmine continues to watch him as if trying to understand what makes him so special. The next day, it is Arthur's birthday. Jasmine gives him a dagger as a gift, and even begins to explain how to use it, leaving the other girls surprised. Tired of childish games, Adam announces that it is time to leave. But before that, Alice calls Arthur, and he notices that she is not feeling well. He asks what is happening, but she says that everything is fine, even though he feels that it is not quite so. During the journey, the group is attacked by bandits. Everyone jumps out of the carriage and takes their positions. Arrows come from all sides, but Angela protects the group with a magical barrier. Arthur realizes that they are surrounded. The leader of the bandits orders that no harm be done to women and children, as he wants to sell them. The battle begins. Alicia, scared, tries to calm Arthur down. Before they are reached, Duran pushes the enemies away with an explosion, and Reynolds knocks down 2 of them with his fists. One of the bandits tries to attack Reynolds from behind, but Helen stops him with a precise arrow. Adam moves among the enemies with his spear, and Jasmine takes down several with her daggers. Still, there are many enemies. The group begins to tire. Eventually, Reynolds is thrown against the carriage and becomes unconscious. The leader of the bandits approaches Alice and Arthur. When the 2 run from the carriage, Reynolds awakens and asks them to get away. Even though he is injured, he insists that Arthur flee with his mother. He reveals that Alice is pregnant, explaining why she seemed ill. Arthur hesitates but eventually accepts. He takes his mother by the arm and starts to run. The leader orders for him to be stopped, but the members of the group intervene, clearing a path for them to escape. As he runs, Arthur recalls his past life. He once was someone who took lives without hesitation, but now he was fighting to avoid losing someone important. While running, he feels a presence coming from the mountains. He sees a man about to cast magic against them. Without thinking twice, he pushes his mother to protect her and is hit, falling down the mountain. During the fall, he decides that he will not go alone. He uses the dagger that Jasmine gave him, which has a rope attached, and throws it at the enemy. It catches on the man's leg, dragging him along. Meanwhile, Duran and Angela try to use magic to save him, but he is too far away. Arthur begins to reflect on everything as he falls, and his mother, from above, screams his name in despair. Tears roll down her face. Arthur, on the other hand, feels that he has fulfilled his duty to protect his family, even at the cost of his own life. He is sad that he will not be able to meet the brother who was to come, but he feels that he did what was necessary. Incredibly, Arthur survives the fall, but when he opens his eyes, he is faced with a gigantic and terrifying monster. And that is how we end the second episode of the anime, The Beginning After the End. If you want the continuation of the next episodes, leave it in the comments, and see you next time.